welcome to Story Time with Manchild. Do you notice anything different this week? Wait. How about now? Do you notice anything different this week? That's right. I don't have a beard anymore. I shaved it off. All right, well, thank you for coming to listen. Now then, we're going to read Paddington Does It Himself by Michael Bond. Wait a minute. These are my driving glasses. I can't use these. I need my reading glasses. Now I can read. One day, the Browns had to go out early in order to do some shopping. So Paddington decided to have his breakfast in bed. Paddington liked having breakfast in bed. Gave him a chance to catch up on his reading. And as a special treat, Mrs. Brown left him a pile of books and magazines. Some of them were very interesting indeed, and one in particular made him sit up and take notice. It was called Do It Yourself, and it showed how to make a magazine rack. Although the article didn't say anything about bears doing it themselves, it made it all sound very simple. In fact, it was so interesting, Paddington dipped his paw in the hot cocoa by mistake instead of the marmalade jar. All of which helped him make up his mind. He would try it himself. Paddington wasn't the sort of bear who believed in wasting time, and he decided it wasn't worth having a proper wash if he was going to get dirty again. So, apart from cleaning his teeth, he simply passed the face flannel over his whiskers a couple of times. That's like a washcloth. Only a few days before, he had accidentally bought a set of carpenter tools at an auction sale. And since then, they had been standing idle in Mr. Brown's shed. Now seemed a very good time to test them out. Paddington investigated the contents of the toolbox. There was a hammer, a saw, 3 chisels, a plane, which is another piece of carpenter equipment, and several other things which he didn't recognize. Altogether, it seemed very good value, and he felt sure he'd be able to make the Browns a very nice magazine rack indeed. What could go wrong, huh? A few minutes later, armed with a piece of plywood Mr. Brown had promised he could use, Paddington staggered outside. Almost at once he wished he hadn't. There was a strong wind blowing, and he was so laden it wasn't at all easy. Which was how he came to bump into the Brown's neighbor, Mr. Curry. "Bear," bellowed Mr. Curry. "What are you doing, Bear?" "Do it yourself, Mr. Curry," exclaimed Paddington. "Don't be impertinent, Bear," roared Mr. Curry. That means don't be rude. "Oh, no, Mr. Curry," replied Paddington hastily. "I didn't mean you were to do it yourself. I meant I'm doing it myself. I'm making a magazine rack. Look." And he held up the book for Mr. Curry to see. Mr. Curry calmed down slightly. "A magazine rack, eh?" he said thoughtfully. "I would like one of those, Bear." "As it happens," he went on, "I'm going out, so you can use my kitchen table to work on. If you make me one by the time I get back, I may not report you for banging my nose just now." "Thank you very much, Mr. Curry," said Paddington gloomily. He wasn't too keen on doing jobs for the Browns' neighbor. Somehow or other, they always seemed to go wrong. Before he went out, Mr. Curry gave Paddington a long list of don'ts, mostly to do with not making a mess. But as Paddington set to work, he quickly forgot them in his excitement. Paddington had never sawn anything in two before, and he found it wasn't easy as it looked. In fact, it got harder and harder. He tried starting from the other side, but that was just as bad. It wasn't until he sat down for a much-needed rest that he discovered why. There was a splintering noise, and the table suddenly parted in the middle. Uh-oh. Paddington tried hard to think of a reason why Mr. Curry might like two small tables with only two legs each instead of one large table with four legs. He peered hopefully at his instructions, but there was nothing in there about mending next-door neighbors' tables, which had been accidentally sawn in half. Paddington wasn't the sort of bear to be beaten, so after carefully spreading some glue along the edges of two halves, he tried propping them up on some cardboard boxes, nailing them both together for good measures. To finish things off, he rubbed some marmalade along the joint in the hope that it would disguise the crack. But even with the curtains drawn, he had to admit that Mr. Curry's table still had a nasty sag in the middle. Uh-oh. Worse still, it was very wobbly. Paddington decided he had an emergency on his paws. First, he sawed a piece of wood off the longest leg. That made the table wobbly in the other direction. So he tried sawing the end off one of the other legs, but that only made matters worse. Paddington lost count of the number of pieces he had sawn off the legs, and it wasn't until he stood up that he had yet another shock. Mr. Curry's table seemed to have shrunk. In fact, he couldn't remember ever having seen such a short table before. The article in Mrs. Brown's magazine was headed, "Delight your family and surprise your friends." Paddington was quite sure Mr. Curry would be surprised when he saw what was left of his table. But as for delighting the Browns with a magazine rack, that seemed very far away. It was much, much later that morning when he finally got back to the Browns' house. But when he saw what he had made them, Mrs. Bird was more than delighted. "Most useful," she said. Now perhaps the room won't get so untidy." And how kind of you to make two, added Mrs. Brown. You made one for their friend. It's very nice of him. Well, said Paddington, I'm afraid there are not both for you. One's really for Mrs. Curry, but I think I'll leave it on the doorstep after dark. After dark, repeated Judy. Whatever for? I think I can guess, said Jonathan. Look. Everybody hurried to the window in order to see what was going on outside. Bear, roared Mr. Curry. Where are you, Bear? I don't think Mr. Curry is all that happy. Well, Paddington, said Mrs. Burt, what have you got to say? Perhaps, said Paddington hopefully, Mr. Curry will feel better if I make him a present of my tools as well as the magazine rack. After today, I don't think I shall be doing it myself again for a long time. Thank you for watching or listening to Storytime with Manchild. Today's book was Paddington, He Does It Himself by Michael Bond. Now, next week's book is going to be a surprise, so it gives you something to look forward to. Now, remember to like and subscribe and leave a comment below. And if you want, tell me your favorite book, and I might figure out a way to read that for you here. So, hope you have a good week, and don't forget to have fun reading.